Hi, today we're going to be working on lesson 19, session 2. This is developing an understanding of multiplying by a fraction. And so yesterday we started out learning about how we multiply a fraction by another fraction. So how much is 1/4 of 1/2? How much is 3/4 of 1/2? And so that's what we did yesterday. And we're just going to continue that work today. We're going to be working in our Ready Classroom Math Workbook. We'll be on pages 395 through 398. So if you can, please go ahead and turn to page 395 in your Ready Classroom Math Workbook. All right. So here we're going to be understanding we're going to develop an understanding of multiplying by a fraction. So we're going to first be looking at number lines. So number lines are one way that we can model multiplying by a fraction. So, for example, it says, mark and shade the number line to show 2/5 of 1/2. So the first thing we do is we find 1/2. So 1/2 on this number line is luckily already labeled for us. It is halfway between the 0 and the 1, and it's labeled right in the middle, 1/2. So here is our 1/2. And we're going between 0 and 1/2. Then we are going to look at the other fraction. So the first fraction tells us the amount that we are trying to find. We're trying to find this much of this amount. So this is the amount that we have, and we want to know how much is 2/5 of the amount we have, which is 1/2. So now, remember, we look at the denominator. The denominator tells us how many parts are in the half. So in this case, we are going to break this half into 5 equal parts. Now, this is probably the hardest part of the entire day, is going to be breaking this half into 5 equal parts. The way that I like to do it is that I know that one part is going to be about there. This is going to be our 5th part. Now, this remaining part, I'm going to break in half, and then each of those in half one more time, and that will give me 4 more parts. So I'm going to break this in half, and then in half again, and then in half again. So now, if you look, we have 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts, 5 parts. So now I've taken this half, and I've broken it into 5 equal parts. And then the numerator tells us how many of those parts we're going to shade. So we're going to shade in 2 of these 5ths. So we're going to shade in 2 of the 5 parts in the half. Now, remember that when we're talking about parts, there are 5 parts in half. If there are 5 parts, equal parts in half, how many equal parts are there in a whole? There are 5 equal parts in a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many equal parts will be on this side? That's right, another 5. So if we broke this apart all the way across, each of these would be 1 equal part. So how many parts do we have in one whole? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts. So this is 1/10. This is 1/10. So this whole shaded section is 2/10. So what fraction of the whole, not what fraction of a half, but what fraction of the whole did you shade? We shaded in 2/10. Now, to check our answer, we're going to complete the multiplication equation. 2/5 of 1/2, or 2/5 times 1/2 equals 2/10. Now, if you haven't already seen it, we went over this yesterday, but I really do want to point out, and maybe I shouldn't, but I really do want to point out that when you're multiplying fractions, there is this easiest thing that you could do. To multiply fractions, you're going to write the fractions horizontally, meaning write them next to each other. you're going to take the first you're going to take the first numerator and multiply it by the second numerator and get your answer. You're going to take the first denominator and multiply it by the second denominator, and that is your denominator. Multiplying fractions is by far the easiest thing that I probably teach in 5th grade, because all you have to do is just multiply straight across. It's not as easy to draw the picture, but it's really easy to do the equation. So 2/5 times 1/2 is 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. So knowing how to multiply these fractions will definitely help you get your answer. It will not help you draw your picture. So that's the part we're going to focus on today. So now we're going to look at number 2. Number 2 says, mark and shade the number line to show 3/4 of 1/3. Then write a multiplication equation for the model. So let's go ahead, and since we know the trick, let's go ahead and write the equation first. I'm going to break a bunch of rules right now. 3/4 times 1/3. Let's go ahead and solve it. I want you to pause the video and solve it. You probably don't even have to pause the video. You probably can just do it. Remember, multiply your numerator times your numerator. 3 times 3 is, 3 times 1 is 3. Then multiply your denominators. 4 times 3 is 12. So our answer is going to be 3/12. But you can't just take my word for it. Now we got to draw the picture to make sure that it matches what we're supposed to be doing. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find 1/3. So here is 1/3, and we're trying to find out of this 1/3, what is 3/4 of this 1/3. So I'm going to go ahead and break the 1/3 up into 4 equal parts. So I like to break it in half. That's 2 equal parts, 4 equal parts. Now, how many of those equal parts am I going to shade? I'm going to shade 3 of those equal parts. There we go. So now I have 3 equal parts. Now, the only tricky part about all of this is that we don't know how many equal parts there are in the whole. We know that there are 4 equal parts in 1/3. So that would mean that there are 4 equal parts in this third, and then 4 equal parts in this third. So if we add all of those equal parts, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 equal parts. This is 1/12, 1/12, and 1/12. Therefore, we have 1/12 plus 1/12 plus 1/12 equals 3/12. Now, I know drawing the picture took so much longer than just doing the equation, but drawing the picture helps you to really understand what it is we're talking about. So as you can see, in both of these cases, when we multiply a fraction less than 1 times a fraction less than 1, we get a product that is even smaller than the part that we are multiplying by. So we're going to get an even smaller part. All right, because this is showing 3/4 of 1/3, or what is 3/4 times 1/3. 3/4 times 1/3 is 3/12. I'm circling the 3/4 when I'm saying it, but that's not 3/4. If I were showing you 3/4, 3/4 would be way down here if we were talking about 3/4. But we're talking about 3/4 of 1/3, which is 3/12. Ooh, I think I just confused myself there. All right, let's go to number 3. Now, number 3, instead of using number lines, you guys know me, number lines are not my favorite, but area models and fractions are my absolute favorite, probably because I love to use a highlighter and it's very therapeutic for me. But I think that doing fractions less than 1 and using an area model are like seriously so fun. So here's how it works. So it says here, explain why the purple rectangle where the shading overlaps represents 1/2 of 1/3. Then complete the product. Let me explain this to you. So in this area model, it's a little hard because they've already shaded it in for us. But in this area model, we have at the top in blue. We'll start with the blue. So the blue. So 1/3 is in blue, and 1/2 is in red. And then the purple is what is 1/2 of 1/3, or what is 1/2 times 1/3. So the way that this works is, since this fraction on the, we're going to do the columns first. Since this fraction is 1/3, you use the denominator to break up this base. Like if you look at this line here, you're going to break this line into 3 sections because the denominator is 3. So you have one section, and one section. And that is the 3. And then the 1 tells you how many sections you're going to shade in, and you're going to shade in 1 column. It'll make more sense when we get down here. Then for the 1/2, this the 1/2 is going side to side. These are your columns. And then these are your rows. Now with your rows, you're going to color in 1/2. So the way we make 1/2 is we take this line over here and we break it into 2 parts because the denominator is 2. And then we shade in 1 part because there is 1 part. The denominator is 2, so there's 2 rows. And then we shade in 1 part because the numerator is 1. When we do it, this overlapping section is our answer. The way we figure out what the answer is we know the number of overlap is going to be your numerator. The total number of squares in the whole area model is going to be your denominator. So how many are there in the whole area model? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. So 1/2 of 1/3 is 1/6. So if you had 1/3 and you broke that 1/3 into half, it would equal 1/6. Let me show you on the next to show you again how this works. So get out my trusty highlighters. We're going to practice this in class, so do not worry if this is just like, Mrs. McGuire, you are crazy. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to put our 2/5 on this side. And honestly, the reason I knew 2/5 went over here, your denominator tells you how much to break this line up into, and it's already broken into 5 rows. And then your 2/3 is going to come up on top because it's already broken into 3 columns. You couldn't put the 2/5 up here because there's not 5 columns. There's only 3. Now, I'm going to do my 2/3 in purple, and I'm going to do my 2/5 in green. So we're going to go ahead and do our columns first. So we have 3 columns all together. We're going to shade in 2 of those columns because our numerator is 2. So there is 1/3 of this whole area. Here is 2/3 of this whole area. So now I've shaded in 2/3. Now I'm going to shade in my 2/5. So I have, this is already broken into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. And then my numerator is how many rows I'm going to shade in. So I'm going to shade in 1, 2 rows. Then the overlap here is my new numerator. Let's count what our numerator is going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4. Our numerator is going to be 4. Our denominator is going to be how many boxes are in this whole area. If you turned this into a square, how many boxes are in this whole area? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15. So when we're trying to find out what is 2/5 of 2/3, the answer is 4/15. And then just to double check that our picture is correct, because you still need to know how to make the picture, remember that when we are multiplying fractions, we can multiply 2 times 2 is 4, 5 times 3 is 15. Or in this case, we know that there are 15 of these individual equal parts in one whole, and we have shaded in 4 of those equal parts. I promise we're going to practice, but just stick with us. Now, if we're looking, number 5 says, how are the number line and the area models for fraction multiplication alike? We're not going to talk about how they're different. We're just going to talk about how they are alike. So both the number line from page 395 and the area models, they both show you how to find a fraction of a fraction by breaking apart the model using the denominators and shading the parts of the model using the numerators. So we break apart the whole based off of what our denominators are. We broke apart the whole into columns, into 3 columns because the denominator was 3 here. We broke it apart into 2 rows because the numerator, the 2 rows because the denominator in this fraction was 2. Then we shaded in the parts of the model using the numerators. This numerator told us to shade in 1/3 of the whole. And then this numerator told us to shade in 1/2 of the whole in rows. And then the overlap is what makes it the same. Whew, that's a doozy. Now, what I want for you to do on your own is choose any model you would like to show what is 1/3 times 3/4. Go ahead and pause the video, do it now, and then I'm going to show you a model on my own of how I would do 1/3 times 3/4. Okay, so I, of course, am going to use an area model because you know how much I love drawing area models and using highlighters. So the problem that we're solving is what is 1/3 of 3/4, or what is 1/3 times 3/4. So the way to do that, it doesn't really matter which if you put the 3/4 on top or the 1/3 on top, but I'm going to go ahead and put the 3/4 on top. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to choose a starting point. That's the most important part, is to choose the starting point. And then I'm going to go over remember your denominator tells you, so we're going to put 3/4 over here, and we're going to put 1/3 over here. Now, the denominator tells us how many parts to break this line into. So we need to have 4 equal parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. So that's showing us that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. Then on this side, we're going to start at the same top left corner, and this denominator is 3. This denominator is going to tell us how many equal parts we have going on this side. So we have 1 equal part, 2 equal parts, 3 equal parts. And then all you have to do now is just connect your square. All right. Once your square is connected, now we're going to do our shading. It really helps to have 2 different shades of highlighters in order to make it the most effective. So I'm going to go ahead and do my columns first. So I'm going to break my columns apart into, we already have it broken apart into 4 equal sections. So there are my 4 equal sections, 4 equal columns. And then I'm going to shade in of those 4 equal columns. I'm going to use my numerator and shade in 3 of them. So 1, 2, 3. So now I have 3/4 of this whole shaded in. Now I'm going to use my purple highlighter and I'm going to do my rows. And I'm going to shade in one row because my numerator is 1 on 1/3. So I'm going to come up here, and so if I were breaking this apart into rows, there's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So I'm going to color in 1/3. It's a little hard to see the purple, but 1/3 of that, it really doesn't, you can barely see it, 1/3 of the whole. And then I'm going to draw my line to kind of outline the overlap. So then remember, your new numerator is the number that you shaded it, that you colored in with both. So 1, 2, 3 is my numerator because I shaded in 3 of these equal parts. And then I'm going to count how many equal parts there are all together to get my denominator, which is 12. Now, I know that most of you will probably not use this method for the rest of your life because you can easily multiply 1/3 times 3/4. But I wanted you to at least see how to do the steps so that you knew what to do. So 1/3 of 3/4 is equal to 3/12. With that, you're going to go ahead and work on, oh, sorry, I guess I could put the 3/12 down here. 3/12. You are going to go ahead and do pages 397 and 398 on your own. And if you have any questions, you can always email your teacher. See you next time.